Okay. Throwbacks. Hey y'all, how are we doing today? It's like I saw you less than 15 minutes ago. If you have forgotten my name by now, hello, I am Kevin Osu. I am an Associate Director with Still Point Theater Collective. And we are so happy to welcome you to our second panel for the festival, our Applied Theater and Carceral Impact panel. We're just gonna jump on in. So we're gonna go through the circle. We're going to answer name, pronoun, and you've gotten this question before, so now you gotta answer it differently. But where are you from? Where are you from that isn't a place? And this time I'm gonna offer this up. Don't overthink it. Let it be simple. Let it be popcorn, whatever word pops in your head. Let it be that. So I'll start us off. Hi, my name is Kevin Osu. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I am from dry heat and humidity, long, wide roads, feeder schools, elementary, middle, high school, all the way to college, where all the kids end up going to the same university. And hot sand, wet grass, and the oh my God! The smell. I'm from everywhere. I'm from everywhere. And the smell of my mom. I'm Gloria. I'm gonna let you go then. Go ahead. What you got for Miss Gloria? Name, pronoun, and where are you from that isn't a place?
Gloria. From she, her. I'm from the air. Fire.
A whale?
A whale.
A whale?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's it? All right. You don't have anything? You sure?
No, I
Okay, all right. Go ahead.
I'm Melissa Lorraine, she, her pronouns, and I come from homemade dresses without a tag in the back, and tights that make it really hard to pee in a stand-up, like whole toilet.
Hi, I'm Lisa Biggs. I know the South Side is like a place, but I come from the South Side, like the vibe. And chocolate chip cookies, and skin knees, and chasing the wind.
Thank you. James?
I'm James Swansea, he, him pronouns, and I like this, this is different. I guess I come from running around as a smiling little kid to, want to be bigger and growner than I was, to being hopeful and motivated to now staying focused and giving back.
Thank you.
Hi.
Start with the name of the pronoun. Follow your heart.
Christy Billups, she, her. A long and winding road. Shiny on the outside. Bumpy on the inside.
Thank you. Brian?
Yeah, my name is Brian Bills, he, him. I'm gonna go with Sam Cook on the group. From the community to the banks.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Not the month.
That's a long debate.
And I think just to go ahead and jump in. So this panel, I was really interested about putting this panel together because I think recently in the last few years, at least it's been brought to my attention, that there is a lot of work that is happening within the carceral system using theater as a way to help facilitate or help process healing and as a way to process the experience of being incarcerated. And I know it's for some folks post-incarceration as well. And I would just, whatever, to the level you're feeling comfortable, just what is your relationship to the carceral system and what has been your experience using the arts within the carceral system? How has that really come about? And this is the opening question, of course, but we are free to flow in the conversation. We don't have to go down the line. Feel free to jump in as things go. But yeah.
It was mine, for me, when I was incarcerated, I met Lisa. And she,
See, you got your show tomorrow, Ms. Gloria. We got to start prepping for the show now.
when I met Lisa at Dwight, when I was in Dwight, it was like in 2007, I had hope. She brought hope to me. She brought not feeling lonely, not being discouraged about what was happening around the campus, that it made you say, different things was happening and stuff like that. When I met Lisa, she took me to another place. I was happy. I was, I couldn't let nothing get me down because being incarcerated, you're not around your loved ones, and for her to come in and give us the feeling that you can be yourself, you ain't got to, that authority figure, it erases away when you in that theater class. You have to. I have never had a dull moment there when I was so it was me that really, really opened me up to be the person that I am today.
For sure. Well, go ahead. Jump in there.
For me, I did 35 years when in 1988, I got out in 2023. So I traveled through the system, in a lot of different eras, in a lot of different prisons along the way. I'm actually one of the few guys that went inside the lab when we were traveling, playing softball and competing in powerlifting.
I ain't gonna tell my age.
But for me, like just theater was that thing that, opened up the imagination and was how I felt like I could give to my brothers in the system. I didn't have any formal training in theater. We didn't have an outside facilitator or teacher about theater. We just had to imagine what theater can be for us when we started the Dixon Theater Workshop in 2018. But I had like a tiny experience with theater on the inside in 1990 when a guy named Billy Steele, we had a program called SOFA. It was the Society of Forgotten Actors. And I had just entered the system and Billy was like, it's really kind of odd character that really, puts theater in a time where not too many people were paying attention. But I really just took Billy and just joined him. I was like, okay, I'm going to join with Billy and see what we can do. And we started writing little skits, and I saw the power of it. But when we had this opportunity, I had always connected to other writers inside the system. There were guys, writing legal briefs. There were guys writing raps. There were guys writing novels, and just going to Dixon. Which didn't start out as a prison, so that's what you got to understand. And walking into that theater building and seeing an actual theater 300 seats, not counting the balcony in a prison, and with a stage and curtains and all that potential. And being a part of different communities of writers, it's like, okay, this is something that we can nurture and possibly build something. And during the process, it became like a nurturing thing for us, as we learn the impact, the transformational power of it, and the impact it was having on our lives, and the way it was changing the culture within the prison. Because you can imagine that, when we first started talking about we was going to do a play, guys were like, really? But we did that first play. We did that first play, and we had 300 seats. 400 guys tried to show up and get in. And so the warden like, y'all got to do it again. So she was under so much pressure. Y'all got to do it again. And I remember the guys who were a part of the program, the founders, we were backstage, peeking out the curtains, nervous, wondering was anyone going to show up. And then as everybody just filed in, it was like, wow, this is real. And now here we are out here in society trying to replicate that in communities that need theater. And being a part of this festival and seeing how, that this is real, like what I just witnessed earlier, with the theater company in back of the yards, and the theater company that's trying to change working conditions for, marginalized people. And here we are, really catching this whole drive of this social change theater. Theater for a purpose. So that's what theater meant for me on the inside. It was an opportunity for our writing community to find a way to not only change the inside, but get beyond the wall and have an impact on it.
Well, my relation is sort of similar to Brian's. I was a former juvenile lifer, which means at 17, I was sentenced to natural life without the possibility of parole. I served 28 years in the Department of Corrections. Been home a little over 4 years. So my real first introduction to theater was because of Brian. But I came home and, because of relationships that I had built while incarcerated, my now executive director, Wendell Robinson, more so had a vision, right? Like, I grew up in prison. And there's a lot of individuals that are like myself that grew up in prison. While in prison, we developed that brotherhood similar to what Brian is speaking about, right? So, he came home before I did, and he had a vision of just showing the world who we had became, the individuals that we became, right? And within that process, I took to policy, right? I took to the policy work because that's what we do as an organization. We advocate for youth who have received extreme sentences like myself, right? So I went down to Springfield and I learned that process and I fell in love with it, right? Learning that process and then mixing in my lived experience. No legislator can refute my 28 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections. So that's one thing that I use to my advantage, right? Now I'm learning how to mix that with that process, right? And I'm fighting for the guys that literally want to just come home and, give back. Individuals after serving a substantial amount of time just naturally want to give back, right? So this is one thing that definitely grabbed my attention once I found out about it, right? And found that it's a new way to bring these issues to the table, right? I fell in love when I read Searching for Justice, just knowing that my input, was a huge part of it, right? Because we want legislators to look at themselves in the mirror, right? Because that's one of the big things, right? They're elected for the people, but a lot of times they lose that within the whole political aspect. So that's my relation.
Thank you. And we'll go to you, Rosita, and Melissa as well. And then after that, we'll go back through, and then everyone can give a rundown of who you're associated with and which organization does the work that you do. That way as well.
So what?
Like getting deeper into.
All right.
So we can talk about restored justice and then
Right.
theater.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was actually going to tag on to Swan, because, so Christy Billups and,
Dr. Christy Billups.
so I'm a teacher, and I come from a fine arts background, but I've been invested in accompanying people who are incarcerated since the whole, don't ask my age, since 1992. And eventually created a class where my students write to incarcerated people. And I'm gonna get to the performative piece of this because I think it's really important, but in fact, briefly, Brian got to participate in that. And I think the bottom line is the stories, right? Like, the stories that unfolded on that paper, originally, now messages, with my students, and the way just the stories in print transformed the lenses through which my students saw. But also, I just got a call from somebody in Menard just a bit ago, and he was talking about how he was resistant at first, writing letters to college students who cared, whatever, and then eventually did, and he talked about I've heard this a lot, like the catharsis of sharing a story, and a chance to be purposeful. Like, he started to feel like he was making a difference in someone's life semester after semester. And so, so I think that has been super powerful. I also have had the privilege, both of these amazing men on either side of me have come to my class to share a little bit about their story and the work that they're doing, and as well as a number of other men and women. And we had a little workshop that Kevin was very instrumental in that, and Carmen, and wanting to help people to share their stories, again, this time in front of people, but in a transformative way. How do we grab those pivotal moments, those transformative moments in our lives to impact the people who hear it or see it? And so I just had somebody in class last week who, there was not a dry eye in the place, and just like, I could feel like the energy in that room and see the students. I don't know what they expected when he walked in, but I know it wasn't that, and that they began to have new lenses. The last thing I'll say is just, I've really been humbled by the chance to be a connector. So the Dixon Performing Arts Group and Still Point, I knew about both of them. And because Still Point is this amazing group of people, I mentioned what was happening in Dixon Performing Arts, and as the rest, as they say, is history. Brian and Lisa and others connected, and they were able to get their plays out here where they could be appreciated. And I just played this little teeny role, but that connecting, right? Connecting, so important. So.
I went into the prisons, I guess originally I practiced theater because I found it to be the loudest yes I can receive and offer other people, a way of a means of exchanging love between strangers. And so I performed in a prison years ago, and it branded me. It was really just one of the most extraordinary experiences of my life. And then fast forward, I ended up going into prisons to offer movement therapy for trauma rehabilitation, with some notion that I might be able to offer like a way for people serving time to have dominion over time, over their experience in time. It was a little cerebral. I don't know if it was useful, but it was something I had discovered through movement therapy, that I had control to manipulate my experience of time, and so it felt like something maybe worth offering to people for whom time had been weaponized. And that got me in the door, and once I was in the door, everything turned upside down. I was really healed by the people that I met inside in ways that I can't even get into, and I came to discover this horrifying system, and and started working for them in whatever way I could, and almost gave up the theater because everything about abolitionist work seemed more and more important than this love exchange that I was practicing in the outside world. And so they actually brought me all the way back to theater. When I was separated from them during COVID, they had been reading the art of activism and appeals art history in the United States, and when I came back to them, they said, I think we've been approaching people through their heads instead of their hearts, and people don't vote with their heads, and would you help us create a performance to reintroduce us to the world that has thrown us away? And they really merged my two selves back together again and gave the theater back to me as a really practical tool, as a way to bridge a huge chasm that we have created with 30-foot walls. And so I'm now functioning in a confused way inside of the carceral system because I really want to be disruptive, and that requires risking my access to the carceral system. It's really complicated to work inside of, to control your access to a place that you are trying to take apart, and they may not let you back in. And I'm kind of navigating those lines very, more and more carelessly, I guess. Like, the men have really encouraged me to fuck shit up.
Hey, yes, yes, yes. How we change things, we break down those doors. Lisa?
Like I said, originally from the south side of Chicago. I have an uncle who went away for burglary when I was a little kid. Nobody spoke about it. He came back. He began a 50-year heroin addiction. Yeah. But my family was a lot of shame around what happened and his situation, his experience, and but many years later, I had when I was in my mid-20s, I had an opportunity to work at a theater company in DC called The Living Stage, which was part of Arena Stage, which is like the Goodman Theater in Chicago. It's the big regional theater. Living Stage used to do theater for social change workshops with everybody, age 3 to 103, not in the same workshop, hallelujah. But one of the key groups we worked with were a group of women who were in court-ordered drug recovery program. And they would come to Living Stage. It was a great program. They had housing, those who had custody of their kids got to keep their kids in an apartment. They got individual counseling, the family got counseling, they did group counseling, and then they would come to Living Stage to just kind of as a compliment to all of that, to make theater about whatever was on their mind. And often they did want to talk about the big story about what had happened to them behind their substance abuse issues. And those women taught me more. They taught me so much that 10 years later, when I was a graduate student at Northwestern in the PhD program in performance studies, I went back and I found 4 of them who had stabilized in recovery and started their own not-for-profit that taught Living Stage style workshops in their local jail. And then I connected with Lisa, who let me accompany a teaching artist for almost 2 years up to the and I now have 2 other programs that had long track records of teaching women behind bars or facilitating workshops with women behind bars. And that is the foundation of my dissertation. It became the foundation of my book, which is called The Healing Stage, Black Women, Incarceration, and the Art of Transformation. So for 10 years, I did ethnography. I went to prison or jail in the US or South Africa. I took class. I interviewed people who were inside. I interviewed people who were outside. And I tried to listen really deeply to what women meant by theater as a healing practice. Because I knew that they did not need rehab. They meant something much deeper. So, and their stories, including the time I spent with Still Pointer, the foundation for my book. Here's my shameless plug. It's not daughters. So yeah, that's my story. I've taught in men's facilities, but most of my experience is in women's.
Thank you,
We
Kat.
got
Part of revolutionary practice is pushing against unnecessary formality, in my opinion, in that sense of like perfection. So thank you, Jasmine, for breaking that wall.
We were just staring like, how are you gonna Thank you, everybody, for sharing all that. One of the things that I wanted to touch on, how I wrote it down on here was the need for programming as a life or soul-saving tool. But one of the things that kind of came up as y'all were speaking for me was, you mentioned something about changing the culture through the program, and then you said something that I think is very important. You said facilitating workshops, not with women behind bars, not teaching women behind bars. And then, rounding that out like theater as a healing practice. All those feel like a good soil of a starting point for this question of like the need for programming in carceral communities as a healing tool. Theater one, and also just outside of theater, like I think just the practice of being in community and working towards healing in that way. Just wanting to hear some thoughts and some feedback on that. Yeah.
Can I just say though that I mean clearly I believe that the work can be transformative. However, I also know, and I know all y'all probably know this too, that everybody cannot do this work, and everybody should not do this work. Everybody is not prepared to walk in as a grounded, regulated grown-up. Grown-up, like I mean a grown-up, like, and deal with officers on whatever kind of day they be having. And then with all the, whatever the other drama is that's going on. So I have like a joke, officers used to, I learned this also from at Still Point, officers used to go to the front desk and sign in, and sometimes somebody being a crappy dude or just jealous, trifling, whatever, that day, and think, drama, why do they need drama? And without a beat, I would look up to them and say, y'all got drama. I know y'all got drama in here, I'm just here to direct. And they would laugh, and my goal was just to make them laugh, right? That's my whole goal, is to like make eye contact with me. Don't jump to a bunch of assumptions about what I might be doing in here, right? Meet me as a human being. I'm going to meet you as a human being, and that's what I'm going to keep doing, is meet people like human beings, even in this place, but everybody cannot do that. People have all kinds of agendas, so it is work that requires training, and that can come in a lot of different ways, but it requires really grounded people who are grown-ups, who are willing to like reflect on self and meet others where they are, really where they are.
Can I, so like, where I thought you also may go was, it isn't, we're all transformed by it. Like the change of the teaching to facilitating with, like that, my students or, any students need to be transformed as well in their thinking. That's where the culture also gets changed, right? It is, and they need healing too, because they got warped thinking going on, and because of media and all sorts of factors, right? And so I just want to like acknowledge the mutuality of the transformation when we bring outside and inside communities into conversation.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, so the original question was the need for programming as a life or soul-saving tool. And then the thing that was really springing up for me from the conversation so far was like as to change culture, and the other thing that's like I was like facilitating, not teaching, it being a community effort, it being a group effort rather than a passing over or giving over. And I honestly at this point, Brian, if you could just speak a little bit more about like Mud Theater Project, because I think the journey of Mud Theater Project all the way up until now is a very specific story to your experience and to the experience of the men that are part of Mud Theater
helping with restorative justice as well.
So let me talk about the facilitator part. From the inside, not coming in and facilitating, but facilitating up from the inside.
Give us some tea.
Because what you said is very important about the staff. You know, so there is like, you know, a daring that you really have to take to put yourself out front in the bullseye of daring to start a program inside the prison system. And to even get into a position to where you can dare to do that. So, you know, it's like, so this was like a culmination of all my time in prison to get in the position of always walking with values and principles in front of the police no matter what they do at me. You know, so if they come to my cell, it was always clean. If they look in there, there was, you know, nothing lewd, nothing crazy. When they monitor me, I walk the same way in the prison every day in dignity. When I responded to them, I always kept my cool, stayed on my square. So to even approach it, just from the staff part, you know, all that to say, I want to run a program, you know, particularly one that involves theater. It's antithetical to the culture in Southern Illinois. So you have to think in most of the prisons are in really, really red areas of the state. And so there's this monitoring that goes on, like, okay, we're gonna give you this much rope. And this is literally what they gave us. You have one mistake, and we ran that program 5 years without any disciplinary. And my partner Tucson, you know, is up there in UL. So we had 3 simple rules. When we got a pass, we went where we were going. We didn't veer off and do all this other stuff. And when they came to look at us, we were actually doing what we said we were going to do. And when it was time to leave, when the pass was over, we were already leaving. So we had to maintain that level of discipline. And then there's the other side of it. You know, we weren't a theater company for nerds and squares. We were a theater company for, you know, everybody. From the hardest cut guys in the system, those were the guys that we mixed into our theater company with a purpose. And to watch them evolve and being in teams and feeling a sense of purpose after, you know, we wrote we never did a play or a production that someone else wrote. We always wrote our own stuff. So everybody was a stakeholder in that process. If you weren't a writer, you was in support of it somehow, an actor or stage craft, or publicizing or doing art. So we had buy-in. And I would be the one who had to be in between the staff and the ambition or the desire to do more to push back against what was capable in the prison. And sometimes they didn't go with it. You know, people didn't like when we say, no, we can't. They said we can't use profanity. Man, but I want to use, no, you can't. You got to be smarter than that. You got to figure out how to write and be purposeful with what we can do. And that challenge like propelled us in making us better writers. You know, we have to message. And so let me just say this: a prison audience is a serious thing. If 300 of them come to see you and you're not represented, then you done. You know what I'm saying? So we had to be like really, really on point with what we did. So we had to speak to the heart of the men that we were messaging for. So we wrote out productions to speak directly to what we knew they were feeling because we were feeling the same thing. So that's the facilitator part. The other part, remind me.
Well, the question was a need for programming, and I'm just interested about how it comes in, how my theater project really is coming out through the full journey.
Yeah, so there's a desperate need for peer-led programming, or programming that we run in the system. You know, we have to be able to get out here and create our own opportunities. But if you're in prison for decades and you never started nothing, you never dared, and you never challenged to create something, how are you gonna do it out here? You know, so they're stifling a whole thousands and thousands of men by never or refusing to give us the opportunity unless you just really, really toe the line to create something while you're doing that time. And let you participate, you know, and let you participate in their programming, but their programming isn't our program. It's different. So now, you know, as we transition the things that we did out here in the community, we have experienced so much camaraderie and love. And there's no way we'll be able to do the things that we're doing without, you know, other companies and organizations assisting us. Because let's be honest, running a nonprofit, starting a nonprofit, funding a nonprofit is hard. You know,
You can say that again. Say it twice.
And particularly when you know, digitally literate. When I went to prison, there was no internet. So I'm like, what? You know, laptop, what? For real? You know, just even the process of it is hard. You know, so, but yeah, we need to put these programs back because they were there before. They took them away because they got afraid of us because we were able to start a political organization in prison in the 90s. And when we challenged with that political organization that ran from the inside, they stopped letting us run programs for almost, I don't know, 20 years. So it's hard.
What's that's news to me about the,
That's a different path.
that's a different, hold on a second, we got 2 more days, we'll have James, the running into you was happenstance for me. It's probably kismet if we're talking about the universe. But it was through Restore Justice and doing the Searching for Justice piece. So if you could just give us a little more about how that came about and what are one of Restore Justice goals in terms of using theater and the arts as a tool for change, especially on the legislative level. You know, we want to speak on next week as well.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, I just want to speak to the program aspect real quick, please, for the incarcerated population. Programming is contagious also. As you heard, Brian spoke to that audience that they had to deal with, right? Like, you have those individuals that may want to change but don't know how to change, right? And when they see somebody else make that change, that gives them the courage to step up and now do what it is, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to have certain boxes checked in order for you to help yourself, right? You just not automatically gonna know how to help yourself, right? You have to be willing to take certain chances and to check certain boxes, or you're not gonna get to where you're really supposed to be, right? Because it's easy to do that. Punishment is going to prison, right? So the objective is to make yourself better, no matter how you do it, right? Whether it's drama, whether it's you athletic, whether you're in the law library, you find something that you can hold on to, right? And that ultimately gives you courage to continue doing that, right? You do one thing and you'll have the courage to keep doing things like that to just continue to make yourself better. But the story of how Mud Theater and Restore Justice came to, it was on the inside, right? They basically, was doing what they were doing, as Brian said, and he reached out. He felt like he had something. So he reached out to Wendell, right? Wendell went on the inside, saw it, and just like he said, it was powerful, right? So, at Restore Justice, we advocate for youth that receive extreme sentences, but we do a lot more. But what we really do is legislative, right? We're in Springfield, where we have these tough issues that we talk about, right? And that's how we met, right? We found that way of bringing a legislative issue, in the form of art, right? The perfect mixture of art and advocacy. So just being able to put it out there in a different way, right? It's not the same conversations, right? You're not going to have the same political conversation as you are after somebody sits and watches a play as powerful as Searching for Justice was, right? So our objective is, right now, we're in the process of trying to figure out the dates where we can take that same play to Springfield, right? We want to put that in the legislative space because there's a lot of things that legislators go through, right? From the human aspect of it, right? It's a lot of emotions and values and what it is, and understand is there's a lot of other things that stop people from using their heart when it comes to these big issues. And that's kind of like what we do, right? We want to educate people on how the process goes. We want to educate people on how to learn how to say what it is that needs to be said, right? You have to learn how to, come from a different aspect, a different avenue, right? So I think that's what we're doing at Restore Justice, and that's how Brian and Mud Theater came about, right? And the fact that it was all formerly incarcerated and incarcerated, right? One of the things that I failed to mention that I ultimately went down and became a registered lobbyist. So when they're in Springfield, I'm in Springfield, and it was legislators at that plate. And when I say that, they are so excited for it to come down there, just so they can see it from a different perspective, right? Because the legislators that did see it, they were upset that they didn't come, right? So
if you could tell the audience something they may not know about the performance yet.
Well, and I'll say it in short, but because it was my first time seeing it, and that's how excited I was about it, right? It's just, it's an issue of retroactivity, man, from like 5 different perspectives. And the main perspective was from the legislator. The legislator ultimately, and please step in if I miss anything, you had to do something. But ultimately, it was a legislator started and he was for the people, but ultimately somewhere down the line, that line became blurred, and now it's more or less he has to decide if he's going to continue running for the people or if he's going to start, building off his political aspirations. And that's what a lot of legislators are faced with. You always hear about, well, I can't do this because the election is right around the corner, or my district this and my district that. And this is ways, to get that out there. And that's what Searching for Justice was. That was a play that more so that made people really face up to what it was, because a lot of people related to it. Right? So.
Restore Justice was not Restore Justice. Searching for Justice was a piece commissioned by Restore Justice through the Mud Theater Project. And actually, please speak on your process for yourself, please.
So writing as a team, our team lead, that's our lead writer right there,
Tucson Daniels.
We write fast because it's a team, and we know a lot of each other, we challenge each other. So in October, we came in and met with Restore Justice. They said they wanted to play the outline at 2025 legislative agenda. We sat in my kitchen and we hammered it out in like 6 weeks. They said they wanted an hour, so and we added elements of what we do well. We spoken word, rap, rhythm, pace, humor, but keep the issue serious. And so we came in, we met with them, and the first step was to come back with a first draft and present it there in the conference room. They said, okay, we like this, but add this, this, and this. So the next step was to come back with a final draft and read it in the conference room for the directors and James, who was the policy expert that this play had to meet the standards for us. And they gave us a stamp of approval. And they walked with us through the process. We invited them into the rehearsals. And we knew this was a little bit beyond our depth, so we came and got Kevin. We're talking about stepping wolf in around. We coming from prison with nothing, no tech, nothing, to stepping wolf in around. Like, hey, Kev, help us. and Kevin came in and really took what we do to another level, taught us a lot of things, and instilled confidence in us. From October and January, we sold Stepping Wolf out, and the demand was so great that so many people were upset that they didn't get a chance to see it. And I remember the ladies and the gentleman who worked with Protecting Step was like, wow, they rushed the stage. So many people left out of the seat and came down on the stage, so the decorum was totally shocked about what typically happens in a theater like that, So, yeah, that process, the combination of theater and advocacy for social change is something that we have to put in practice for these times. Because how do we reach the people? One of the things organizations say, well, how do we reach the politicians? How do we reach the people first? know what I'm saying? Because politicians follow people. You're not gonna reach the politicians all the time. But if we capture what they go through and they can connect to it like a storyteller, that's what we did. We told their story in a way that they could connect to. And we put all these different elements that they had to deal with. So we want them to see them, but make the right choice. So that's what it was.
But you also appeal to the heart of everybody, like what Melissa was saying. Like, right, you raised up the policies, the legislation, but also like brought in the father of a victim and, right, so also helping people really relate to it on multiple levels.
So that's, I guess, I'm no theater expert, I'm just, novice, but we think, from my experience in prison, everybody got some connection to what you're doing to feel invested. So we represented, like, most of all the different aspects of what happens in the legal justice system.
I mean, I think personally, like one of the things that I've learned over the last few years, like working with you and working with Still Point, is that we've said this a few times in different ways, but I think it's something that I keep coming back to, where it's how are you kind of creating a space for folks to be able to tell their stories and share their stories. And I know a lot of times there's this feeling in theater that we should just be putting up stories because we have stories to tell, just for the sake of telling the story. It's like, yes, there is validity in that, but what is it to have a little extra purpose of saying, no, I want to create an impact for someone in the audience, to want to move and want to create a change and want to do something different. And the thing that's coming up for me right now is how the need of purpose, that finding of purpose that comes from the self-exploration and also sending that out, and how that can also give purpose in the audience for them to be able to do more and to do more. And to what you're saying about the legislations, the legislators, if we are only ever showing one voice, especially in theater, because it's so much about hey, listen to us, watch us while we're up here. If we're only giving one perspective or one side of that, no one's ever going to want to listen to us. It's by giving all the sides and making sure that there's an emotional element that we give people the tools to be able to make decisions and choices for themselves about how they want to impact things, how they want to go about creating change. Ms. Glow? How you doing?
I'm okay.
You're okay? I wanted to hear your thoughts a little bit as well, because since last summer, I met Ms. Gloria last summer. Ms. Gloria is part of has been part of the Symphony Project for a number of years. But I've met Ms. Gloria at Grace House for the production of Behind the Mask that we developed last summer, which is performing tomorrow, 3 p.m. Ms. Gloria's been getting her voice ready for it all this afternoon. But you told us a little bit before that, meeting Lisa and going through the experience gave a sense of freedom. And I think I wanted to hear more from you about specific experiences, specific moments that stick out to you through your experience. And this word that's been coming back up, at least for me, has been this need for purpose and purpose, and how purpose can come about in these workshops and in these settings. So those are a lot of words, and I want to just push that over to your court to see if there's anything moving for you.
Well, when I went to Dwight in 1976, we didn't have that many programs at that time. There were like 300 some women there at that time. And we didn't have a lot of programs. The programs we did have, it wasn't, in a way, it made the ladies want to learn and build their minds and take them other places without being incarcerated in your mind. When I left and I came back, I've been doing a lot of things to go to jail. But society put them things in your face, and then you take it, but it's repercussions I'm 73 years old. I made 73 Thursday, February 20.
Woo! Happy birthday!
Long time. In and out these systems. And this last time, I couldn't do it. I have to fight them. I'm just a day one, but I overcame. When I went to Grace House, I didn't want to go there at first, you know. So they put me on WTTW. PBS.
Wait, they put your PBS?
Yeah.
Like they were just like, here you go.
No,
too.
no, it came from Threshold. To take that system, like, I didn't want to go to jail, so they offered me a program to go to. And at first I didn't take it, but then I took it. But when I went back to, when I went to Grace House, I went to a play, and I said, Lisa, I was in tears because I hadn't seen her in a while. And she kept saying, come back, come back. So then I got in this program called Live Free. We did the same thing y'all was doing, lobbying in Springfield for the men and justice and also the women. Because I want to say this, when I heard the death row of women, I was there. And I heard the death row of women always was there. But when girls fall, it's no, death row of women. It's not that time. So I really doing a lot of changes system. Every time I go to it takes me away, makes me realize, make me realize think that I can help other females. And I have sons too. They've been incarcerated too. My oldest is 56. It's just, me at that time, I'm gonna say this, y'all wouldn't do plays and stuff like that. A lot of them wouldn't, because they think they mess with their image, you know? But I'm really proud to see that they took it and used that and did wonderful things. When they went to Springfield and the people saw, you don't get it again. Yeah. But I really turned my life around. I have a job with the place that I was at Grace House. I'm finna do work with incarcerated women on the south side. My experience has made me a better one, a real better one than I was standing before. It's all come from Lisa, Grace House, Live Free, Threshold. I've been in the organization and I thought I was wiped out, but I'm not. They helped me and I'm a winner.
Melissa, did you have any thoughts? I see you scribbling furiously. I know there's some great thoughts written on there.
Well, I mean, so many thoughts, but you are reminding me that there's just so much power in making meaning out of your lived experience and the way that telling your story does, and gives you the ability to take hold of your narrative, decide how it's told. There's something very powerful about telling your own story and not having your story told of you or for you. invited them to dance their life. It was, it's an exercise that I got from some Serbian choreographers, but it's a practice of dance. You have a starting point that is your birth, you have an ending point that is today, you have 5 minutes and you can't think about it. And it's not something you prepare or practice, it's really a discovery of your lived experience over 5 minutes. And the men initially resisted that with a feeling of like, are there children in them? Can I swear? Is it okay?
Swear.
Okay.
Swear is revolutionary.
They were like, you want me to dance my shit life? You know, like it was really almost offensive for them to consider their life a dance. And then they started to recognize the way that their own dance had been taken from them. Their own life had been taken from them to where they didn't want to embody it. And it was really moving to discover the revolutionary act of dancing your fucking life. Yes, that is your life, you know. And then they wanted to. Then it was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna dance my fucking life, you know. You can't take that away from me. And then to do that, to be that vulnerable in front of a room full of incarcerated people. Like these were all layers of abolition, or I don't know what, you know. I mean, it was really every step of it was so hard and so brave to choose to do, and then to invite others into that kind of freedom. And then the performance itself, I think at the last second, Internal Affairs got really nervous about it and wanted a transcript and wanted to see exactly what was going to be said. And they told us outright no disparaging comments about State Bill.
So people may not know, can you give a context of State Bill?
State Bill just closed as like a human rights violation, a place that was actively killing people. It was medieval, 100-year-old, horrible maximum security prison. And so I gathered all the men on stage before the performance, and I said, guys, we've got to censor. Like they don't want any disparaging remarks about State Bill, which felt absurd, you know. And I'm looking at them like, please, you know, I'm serious. Otherwise, because I didn't know what would be done to them if they didn't agree to this. And then they started the performance, and I could tell 5 minutes in that they weren't going to censor anything. And I'm just on the front row sweating, you know, like I can't protect you past, like I have no, you know. And I was so moved by their courage, and I afterwards we debriefed, and they just kept saying, Melissa, they can't do anything more to us. There is nothing they can threaten us with. And I think that was also really part of the, like, my dedication to them for life. I've never seen that kind of courage. I want to meet them in that courage. I mean, they really have trained me to be braver. I mean, you know, we don't really understand the people that we're dealing with. Right? None of us really understand them. I wanted so badly to protect them in a space I have no dominion over, and so that's where I felt terror in front of their defiance of explicit instructions. But so just to say that, and then the last thing I wrote down was, you know, I come from a very strict Christian upbringing where my parents only believed that art was worthwhile if it was Christian art, and I actually believe that that is the fastest way for it not to be art, like the idea of propaganda defiling the art object, right? And so I think this is tricky when you're trying to do activism using art. Does it return to propaganda, which I actually really don't buy into? And so this to Brian's point about representing all sides, I think this is really how you hold yourself to a higher standard, because we know we are carrying the truth, the good truth, and we don't have to tip the scales, we don't have to lean any particular direction to make it work. We can tell the whole truth and believe that everyone will hear the truth. So that, you know, like Tim Robbins made Dead Man Walking and got hate mail from both sides. that is an accomplishment that nobody could tell what he was after, and they all got upset, you know? That's a way to stay in the fire, to keep it real, to keep it true. Get hate mail from all sides, you know? We don't have to bend this to get our way. We know that we are representing the good, and that can somehow keep it from becoming propaganda.
Yeah. I'm glad you said, I have to, you know, and this is for interpersonal issues. I think maybe it can apply here as well, but it's, if when you're right, you don't have to do too much extra. You know, let people say you're wrong. If you're right, it will come through. It will rise to the top every single time. Go ahead, please.
So the reason we would use spoken word is similar to the reason, I mean, you cannot disassociate a prison from a plantation. So we had to use metaphor to speak above what they could understand. So we had artists like Tucson and Yoel and King Musa could use metaphor that only we could understand. You know, so, you know, I always tell them, like, if I can understand it, make it where I can understand it. And I know we don't, you know what I mean? Because I was the oldest one. They speak that was, you know, their language. So if I couldn't understand it, I felt safe. But now explain it to me so I can. So we had to, I mean, really, we literally, it's just imagine a Negro spiritual. Like, you know, slaves in the plantation singing a song, they think that they just sing a song, but no, they set the pace for the work. So we would use metaphors to talk to each other that would, I mean, that travel beyond the stage through the system, because when guys got transferred, they said, man, you know what they did at workshops? When they go to Logan, you know what I mean? Or when they go to Lincoln, when they went to Menard, when they went, and all these seeds got planted. And similar to your program, which we had no idea was happening at the same time that ours was happening. You know, so that's just how, you know, crazy the system is. How can we not know about a theater program in Stateville? And we just, and we in Dixon, just 100 miles away. You know, how can we not know? And I did a lot of time in Stateville, lived in that house, when it was that house. You know what I'm saying? So we considered that headquarters in the system where all the information came out of Stateville first and disseminated down. So they had got so powerful in the system that they could hide that from us. You know, so that's the kind of system that you're up against. Thursday, we went into Starbucks downtown on Michigan Avenue, and we did a piece that we call Abolition and Abolition. And we told them what we were going to do, you know, because so we literally took the abolitionist movement pre-Civil War and explained it in the presentation. We had a really good speaker from Chicago, Rose Rodriguez, like a really good scholar, just literally did like a dissertation on it. But then she passed it off to our poets, and we said it through poetry. We told that story chronologically, you know, and the call to action was, we're not going to spend that $900 million to rebuild these prisons. We need to spend that $900 million to prevent people from going to prison. Because the truth is, there are hundreds of beds in the system that nobody's in. So why are we planning to rebuild prisons that we don't need? And we took that to corporate America, you know, and that's what we got to keep going with the social change. We got to challenge people right where they are and be truthful messages of what need to be heard.
Did you have anything to say?
Thinking of just about programming that, you know, that men constitute 90% of the prisoner population. Women are about 10% nationwide. In the U.S., like women are, so American women are 4% of the global population, like on the earth, but women in the U.S. constitute 30% of the women's female incarcerated population across the globe. We are the largest incarcerator, hands down. Like everybody knows that. I think most people know that. And you can go state by state. I mean, sometimes it's Texas, sometimes it's California, sometimes it's Louisiana that has like the highest percentage of people behind bars per capita. But throughout the system, programming for women is really sparse, is really poor, it is really limited. I mean, on the whole, I think people understand that at men's facilities that men have the right to like religious programs, they have the right to educational programs of sometimes, and so that can be anything from getting your GED to getting like an associate's degree. That there's recreational programming, that those, the parenting programs in some cases too, and arts opportunities, but that is not the same thinking in terms of women's programming. It's just, there are not the same kind of resources attributed to women's facilities. Part of that, it makes 90% of the people in the system are men. The overwhelming majority of our funding ought to go to providing resources to men in those facilities. But the 10% is not really 10%. It's not even 10%. Because people really hate women who break the law. And we want to punish them not only for being shoplifters or engaging in sex work. This is why women are behind bars. They are not most people are not a serial killer. Most women who are behind bars have not committed a violent offense. They are shoplifters. They are sex workers. They are people who are struggling with like problematic substance use. They're shoplifting from Target, like a ham, or diapers, or some jewelry, or some clothing, right? Like the necessities of life, these are crimes of poverty. These are crimes of poverty. Most men who are behind bars, they're behind bars for the same thing, crimes of poverty. We've criminalized the behavior that people use in order to survive poverty. Why are you in poverty? Because you don't have enough money. In the last workshop, right, we have this whole conversation this afternoon about terrible working conditions, and the thing we didn't talk about, which I'm sure if we had more time, wage theft. People are getting their wages stolen left and right if they can even get a job, right? So poverty is a decision that our society has made, that we're going to keep people poor. And women are asked for poorer than men behind bars. They're there for sex work. They're there for shoplifting. And they're there for problematic substance use, often the kind of substance use that they use in order to deal with pain from sexual assaults that occurred before they were 13 years old. That no one believed if they told, and if they didn't tell, somebody who's like, you know what's really gonna help? Here's this, fill in the blank, right? And decades later, you have a substance abuse problem because no one has been able to actually get you help that you really need. And facilities do a really poor job of meeting women's needs what they really are. The overwhelming majority of women behind bars, they are single parents to kids who are under 13 years old. Single parents to kids who are under 13 years old. They don't need, I'm sorry, you can take maybe a parenting class once, but after a couple times, come on. Like, come on. They don't get, I mean, substance abuse programming behind bars, it's what is it, 90 days, baby, NA, and AA, they do some work, some good work behind bars, definitely, but the women that I knew who were in jail, most people go to jail, they don't go to prison. They go to jail. They don't go to prison. So, the minute they get out of jail, someone meets them at the bus stop or wherever they are, and it's like, you know what, welcome back, fam, and they hand them the substance that they have been trying to get away from. Unless someone else meets them at the door and takes them directly to a comprehensive program that can help them enter into recovery and stabilize. This is where the $900 million, we could do so much work. And then some. It won't even cost $900 billion. It won't even cost the $900 billion. But we don't have that kind of medical infrastructure in order to do that work because we have decided not to invest in it. We have decided instead, the reason why the beds are empty, because we did some good shaming. We did some really good shaming. And defunding the police, people were upset, like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Defund the police, what's going to happen? Well, the other part of that ask was like, let's put some money into programs. Let's put some money into social work. Let's put some money into like de-escalating violence. Let's retrain police so they don't spend 90% of their training time at the range, learning how to shoot their weapon better. That's not training. actually gonna help us solve this problem. And unfortunately, the Trump administration and their supporters, they see a gold mine in the idea of deporting people who are allegedly here undocumented. We already know a bunch of Puerto Ricans who are swept up in this, and Puerto Ricans are US citizens, right? So there's gonna be a whole bunch of people who get accidentally incarcerated through ICE, so they can fill those prisons so that people can profit from them. Because there's three kinds of original prisons in the United States. The biggest one, Auburn, the model that Statesville is built off of, and Dwight and Dixon and all the Menard, is purely for profit. Those people didn't have any goal of rehabilitation, penance, none of that. They needed a cheap supply of laborers, and they just started picking up people in their neighborhoods and putting them to work in factories after factories after factories. The American infrastructure that we know of between, there's so many products that get built historically behind bars. Those numbers look different now, depending on when and where you are in the country. But in New York, every license plate is made in the men's correctional facility. So they make us all implicated in the system. If you teach at a state university, I taught at Michigan State, many of the tables and chairs in the library were built at the men's prison. And there are so many other products that come out of incarcerated people's unpaid labor. So, I don't know how you're gonna wind up like replacing people who are in the workforce now with a incarcerated workforce, but I'm sure that the goal has not changed other than to put some money into certain people's pockets. And it doesn't matter what the conditions are. The worse the conditions are, the better. So there's a huge opportunity for some kind of serious organizing. But the challenge is that sometimes the corrections officers unions, they have their agenda, and I want people to be safe. I understand a corrections officer's job is an excellent job for someone with a high school diploma, maybe high school diploma, 13 weeks of training, maybe. It's not a police academy, right? Great benefits. There's every reason in the world to want to keep those jobs and to be safe at work, but the mentality that is underneath the American carceral system is one explicitly of exploitation. With a little like rehab, penance, transformation, just salted on there to make those of us who believe that people can change, to make it more palatable for us. But the actual doing is designed to be torture. And women are completely swept up in this system, just as men are. And the opportunities for programming, they're not nearly enough, and those that are there, they're not good enough. Too often, they are not good enough. People need so much more, and we need to know what the incarcerated people need and want, but they've also been saying that. They've been saying that since the 1800s. They want to get paid for their labor. They want to get paid.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Something that I wanted to touch on a little bit, just come up in different ways, is the theater and limitations. Because on the one hand, we heard about how you had limitations for your programming, but it's within the limitations that you figured out how to maintain those limitations and those expectations that were handed on you. And on the other hand, you told about your experience of you were handed a limitation at the last second, and folks said, no, you're not going to deal with that limitation. That was just something that just really stuck out between what you guys were sharing from your experiences. So I was wondering if there was anything more to that. I know for me, in terms of theater, I always say that we should lean on the limitations because that's where more comes from. That is, it's a more fallow ground if there are limitations in there, because you get to go, okay, well then what is the other way that I can do this? What is another way that I can do this? What are the ways that we can use the metaphors where even I don't understand it, so that we know we're not going to get into any extra trouble. So yeah, that was what was sticking out. So I wanted to put that out into the space to see if you guys had any thoughts about that.
Can you remind us how long is this session? Because I know we have a program.
This session goes until 6:30,
Okay.
and then we have dinner from 6:30 to 7:30.
Okay.
We don't gotta take the whole time. We don't take the whole time either.
No.
6:06. Okay, cool.
Thank you.
No problem.
I mean, I any and every excuse to end the program, right? We actually functioned in a strange way because we got cameras inside and we were just trying to extract material, and we had to get that material out and we had to get it seen. And so in order to do that, we had to risk our ability to maintain our program. So we distanced ourselves from, like, PNAP. We had been a part of PNAP, and PNAP needed to, PNAP is the Prison and Neighborhood Art Project. And they have programming. They were the first, I think, to get a program in Stateville, and then all the universities followed, and they're extraordinary. And they have programs all over. And the thought of doing something that would jeopardize PNAP's ability to go into the Illinois Department of Corrections is unthinkable. You know, so Theater Y really ultimately parted from PNAP so that we could be a little bit more careless. That's not careless at all, like deliberately defiant, because we were trying to extract material to get out to the public eye. And of course they don't want us to do that. So, I mean, our days are numbered by the very nature of what we're trying to do. And so you just have to know your goal. Brian's goal was to continue a program. So the margins were clear and we had to color in the lines. And we had to really continue to remember we're okay with being banned from the Illinois Department of Corrections. That is not the worst fate for Theater Y. You know, and it was important for us to say that out loud to ourselves, because otherwise we start working for the Illinois Department of Corrections, and nobody's trying to do that.
Free compliance.
You know?
Free compliance.
So I think that would be my comment.
So for us, it was, you know, like you said, for me, it was my job to maintain the program, but to also create spaces within the program so that they can do them. We had like a room where, you know, we would bring like the real gritty rappers, and we would like secure the hallway where it was, like, all right, go ahead, get it on.
That's dope.
They was back there, you know, doing them, you know, and you know, when I showed up to them, I mean, I'll keep going. But for me, it was like, as we were discovering theater, because I'm trying to explain to you, we didn't know theater. We were discovering theater. So as we were writing these characters and using them, making them real, we were discovering about ourselves. That's why I was so invested in maintaining the program, because they can really pay attention to us writing and developing characters. They'll look in the room, get bored, and leave. But the transformative impact of guys stepping outside of themselves and becoming somebody else, I'm witnessing this. I'm like, wow, this is it. I'm having these epiphanies through every process and every iteration that we challenge that we took on, because we kept escalating. And finally, we got an op-ed in the newspaper, and it said that, you know, it's time for Chicago to allow new voices a seat at the table to discuss how to stop the surge of violence in Chicago's communities. Something like that. I didn't say it exactly right. And we sat down as a group and was like, man, this is our invitation. So let's write to that. And then Tucson, you know, said, man, this is my turn. I want to read this project. So we wrote this play called The Story of Violence. And it was our telling the city of Chicago that let us tell you about violence. You know, we are like, you know, by de facto, really understand violence. And he wrote that play and we submitted it to, at the time, the only competition we knew where we could compete with everybody in America, that was Spin America. And it won first place as a drama in 2023. And it's like, you know, and then Steel Point, again, you know, by doing something like that, Steel Point read it, and it was the first time that something that we created made it beyond the wall. Now, my family met Tucson, man, you know, and our family supported us, and it just, and if you could see it, I mean, I wish I could bottle the impact that it had on the inside when we told guys what was happening. So I sent Jabril Shanes, and Rio sent the Zoo, you you sent Darius' way about, imagine my problem with the world is me. And now we have all these other guys finishing up their plays about to come into this pipeline. But we want to catch these creatives that are so instrumental in keeping culture and violence in the system. There are hundreds of them. We want to catch them as soon as they come out and stifle them to do the work that they do so well and to showcase it to our communities and to their communities. And we need help to do that because we still have a lot to learn. That's why this festival is so important, because I'm learning about all these different groups that I never heard of because I've been in an isolation chamber. All of us have for so long, so like this journey for me is like a little different because I had to like suppress my emotions for so long. What I did tell y'all is that I was wrongly convicted. I had to walk through that system 35 years, I was supposed to be there. And I didn't get my sentence overturned until 2023. And for the larger, I came into the system crying, screaming, beating on the wall, and it didn't help. And people were like, I had to say, you know what? This gonna be me. And the people that deal with me, they gonna come to an understanding of who I am as a person. And I use that, as a way to understand, like, if I can teach or be a part and create, so can they. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm trying to translate how that educated me about theater because all this time, they said I was somebody else. You know what I mean? And here I am, me, walking through this system as me, and still creating programs all along my journey that was having impact. But I can only do that because I never felt no shame. I never felt like they were better than me. I always felt like, I can do as much as they let me do. I can just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and bring along these people with me in that fight. And so I'm like, we can do that out here as well. Social change is necessary for the city of Chicago because what are we facing now? For everywhere, honestly. Before there was TVs and radios, why do we still remember Shakespeare? Because he essentially educated the world, about what culture and art was. So we have to go back. What was the Renaissance period? What was they writing for? They were writing for a purpose. A Raisin in the Sun taught us about redlining. All of it had purposes. We have to go back to that, And I feel like a little reluctant to speak about it because I haven't seen very many plays. Like 3 or 4 of them. I saw Hamilton, Rhinoceros, and one other play. I can't remember the name of it.
Did you go to Henry? Did you see Fat Ham?
I haven't. That's what I mean.
You just saw Fat Ham?
Yeah, so I haven't seen very many plays, so it's like now I'm thirsty to learn and see, so yeah, I don't know if I can.
No, you did. No, that was good. And something that in bringing this festival together, a lot of people ask, like, what would be the, what do you want your goal to be? What do you want to be your outcome to be? I was like, I want people to come and learn and to leave more informed. And people would be like, no, what do you want your goal to be? Like something tangible. And I was like, for me, if anything, if all these organizations that have programming that has a carceral component to it, if all these organizations are able to get just like on one document to say, all right, from June to July, we're here. From August to whenever so-and-so is here. So-and-so is here. And what happens is everyone is on the same page about the work that we're trying to do. How can we fill in the gaps between organizations? How can we support each other to make sure that the work that we do is sustainable across programs and across different locations, instead of just saying, oh, okay, well, we can't go to so-and-so location for the next year, so they're out of luck over there. Or we can't go somewhere else, so it's out of luck. Like, how can we connect to really solidify those bonds past this festival? If you, and I guess all that to say, Brian, I want you to share the idea that you have about going back with the program, because I think that is a wonderful plan, and maybe there's a way that these collective minds in this space, we start these steps towards making that reality.
Yeah, I don't know anything about PNAP other than church. started the Robinson writing team, and we were doing it until the officer who ran it took it from us as a field ed program and made it his own. He just did that a couple of months ago. He used our exact same language and said, no, y'all can't run it no more, I'll run it. And everybody quit. I said, don't quit though, because he can't really run it. He can just stand there and y'all still run your program. But it is so necessary to reactivate the imagination and to remind people the power of words and actions and to like teach emotional intelligence to people before they get out. You know, and that's what theater does, because I mean, like I think one of those articles I was just ranking said, I said you can rank without repercussion. You can literally go somewhere in a prison and scream and not get in trouble and release that energy. You can pour out your heart. You learn empathy on the stage when you create these characters, and you can walk in another man's shoes. You know, that prepares you to come back into this community out here and not only survive but thrive. And theater is a vehicle for that. And we have to figure out how to get these programs like that that can teach men that and women that, because you know, like I got some women in Logan, Erica Ray, a superstar, a writer, nationally recognized, asking how can she help with what? I'm like, how the hell you want? So, yeah, we have to figure out. We have to, like, theaters have to come together, you know. And this is a start, and I really appreciate you, Kevin, for, you know, having this so we can figure it out. You know, nobody wants anybody else's identity. We just need to figure out, get a mission, make it purposeful, and execute it. That's what we do in Mud. And we invite all partners in, let everybody have a seat at the table, because it's hard getting guys in prison to form a table and agree, but we figured out how to do it. You know?
Can I say just one more thing too, that the thing that I'm really appreciating from the panel is that you all emphasize the importance of letting people tell their own stories, right? Of coming into their own voice. There are, we'll see what's gonna happen, but I don't know if you all saw this, but as Trump took over the Kennedy Center presidency, one of the things he's doing is elevating a group called the J6 Choir. So people who were held in the DC jail, a place I have been, the DC jail, because of insurrection and treason charges, you know, they formed a choir. Now, I hope they have lovely voices. I have no idea what happened. All kinds of radical things could be happening in this choir, but I suspect otherwise, right? And the reason I raise this is because you all are emphasizing the importance of creating spaces for currently and formerly incarcerated people to tell their own stories. There are people out there who who think of theater as a teaching tool for domination. Who think of theater like the only good theater is, and I love a good Shakespeare Behind Bars program, and I appreciate Kurt Tocklin for the decades. But because of the way that he does it. There are the people though, who are like, theater is a civilizing project. And so you should, and they have not read Hamlet, they have not read, these plays are about murder. Right? There's all kinds of like, people get stabbed, poisoned, thrown into stuff. I mean, like, there is murder, war, and mayhem. But it doesn't matter what the content of the play is. What's important to them is that they can stay to their state representatives or whoever their constituencies are that are checking on them. You know, these are like the inmate programming coordinators and the wardens, the sheriffs. You can say, oh, no, we're teaching Shakespeare. Meaning we're teaching like a curriculum of appropriate civilized behavior. And doing it in a simplistic way. I mean, I think actually that most people who teach Shakespeare Behind Bars do an excellent job of like helping people make connection with the work in a really deep way, and ask these hard questions about violence. But the reason I raise this is that Shakespeare didn't write for women. There are a whole lot of people who are not in Shakespeare. And what you all are emphasizing is how transforming it was for you to tell your own stories. And what I hope is that if programming like this is a thing that we hope to pour into, is that we hold space and keep holding and demanding space for people to tell their own stories, because I think people really don't want to hear the stories of the low income Black and brown people who are behind bars. They don't want to hear those stories. They don't want to hear our stories. They don't want to hear them. They're hoping the silencing of locking people away will have like solved the problem, but that's not how you actually solve a problem called racism, by locking people away. They don't want to hear our stories. They don't want to know. And whatever the future may hold, people who are artists, who are serious about working with people who are impacted by the criminal legal system, I hope that we will remember that. Because sometimes some program is not good programming. I'm hoping the J6 people are excellent musicians. And I'm hoping that when they perform, that I can hear a message about something other than what I've been shown in the media about them. But, because I think a lot of people have gotten duped. And I know that everybody wants safety, and they want well-being, and a sense of, they want accountability, and they want for themselves and for others. So when they sing, I'm gonna listen for that, but but I know the power of theater, and it can be a civilizing tool, and that is dangerous if the civilization doesn't include all of us.
Right, but I think what I feel so strongly about showing this footage to the world is that it is going, I hope it will civilize the world. If it goes any direction, it means to civilize us. Because we really, society is measured by how it treats its prisoners, and we fail. We fail so miserably. And I mean, we showed this footage, and somebody said, yeah, but I want to know what they did. Right? I want to know what they did. And I mean, your question was so offensive to me. Like, ask better questions. What,
But be prepared to answer them.
Totally.
Yeah, that's a good question. What did they do?
I mean, if you want to take a deep dive into that conversation, well, let's go. But the material is not there to satisfy your most surface curiosity about these individuals.
It's refusing the simplistic answers.
Absolutely.
That's what I feel is at the heart of the work here. Is we refuse the simplistic, the narrow, the easy answers, to answer really answer the question and refuse the dumb crap. So we're not always right, but we're willing to ask better questions.
Before we open it up to the audience for any questions, any final thoughts, burning thoughts from our panelists that you just feel like I have to share this out? No. Okay, any questions from the audience? This was a very riveting conversation.
So I went really quick. I don't know what footage you're talking about. Can you describe that?
Tell them about the screen.
Yeah, I mean, it's in late, like the very early stages. We just had a tester screening of it at Facets a week and a half ago or something like that, to see what the public's response would be. The first 20 minutes of the film is excerpt. What's it called? It will be called The Incarcerated Mass. This is all part of the workshopping. The first part of the film is excerpts from this performance that I keep mentioning that they did at Stateville, where they didn't censor themselves. And then we had cameras inside for almost 2 years, and so we were shooting all the preparation of that performance, all the debriefing of that performance, and then the continued effort. Once the performance went as well as it did, then there was a lot of people who wanted into the program, and so we created a official theater-wide program, and brought more people in and started imagining what we could film with them. Like the goal was now, okay, what are we filming? And then it all got interrupted by the closure of Stateville, which was wonderful. I was so glad Stateville closed, but then they scattered this cohort of humans in a fraternity for 20 plus years, and so now they're all over the state. So it's like a conversation in progress, I guess is what I'm saying. the footage that we have that we're trying to make something out of is kind of interrupted, and so the film is about that interruption, but it starts with these 20 minutes of this prepared performance, and then it goes into more documentary style. This is what it's like to be in this cohort. This is how we spend time together and honor one another with our presence. And the closing of Stateville and the whittling down the last 3 classes where it was 25 and then 5 and then 2, and what we did in the hallways to try to push the boundaries of what was possible in that horrible medieval place.
Correct, anyway. Was that?
You're showing that film on Monday night, right? Or is it Sunday night?
No. On Monday night we are doing Stanley Howard's play
Yes.
called Tortured by Blue, and we're still like those 2 screenings gave us some allies who are going to help figure out how we distribute this more broadly. Like our goal is really to try to pass legislation with these films, and so we're trying to work with media distributors that have that kind of targeted approach, because that's not how most people release movies with like a goal, you know. So this is all new for us. We're at theater. We don't make movies. This is all new, but it's the best way to bring them out into the world that we know of.
Dare I say, I may know someone who works in an organization called Restore Justice. At the Social Change Theater Festival hosted by Still Point Theater Collective, and I think maybe there might be room for conversation.
That would be amazing.
I don't know. Do we have any other questions or comments from the audience? No? Okay, cool.
I actually
please.
I would love to jump on, like, for me, I felt there were so many, thank you all for sharing these incredible stories and lived experiences. When the word intersectionality from earlier came up so many times for me, because not just like when you said wage theft, that is the problem that working people experience, and we have like 3 different scenes about it. But in one of the scenes, again, this race issue comes up, because part of the group of worker staff that was not present with us today, our African American Black members are all recently released or previously incarcerated citizens who are fighting for their rights as citizens, because they take that away from you. And so that's why they end up in these jobs, because they're the similar vulnerable population. And I was just so moved by the ways in which the stories that you were sharing are so connected with the stories that we've been hearing from the team members, because of the inside experience and the outside experience, and the lack of support when we get out, the lack of support. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Bye, Gloria. Thank you.
Thank you.
Careful.
Dude, I had a question, but my brain is a mush. There was something I wanted to ask about that intersectionality. Maybe later I'll find you all and I'll ask you.
And don't worry, we have 2 more days of this wonderful festival. We'll go ahead and, if the question comes back while I'm still rapping, jump in. But otherwise, thank you so much for coming to our second panel of the day. Give our panelists a round of applause. It is officially 6:30. You are released for dinner. Please go to the Golden Apple, go to Pizza and Pockets. There's plenty of restaurants in the vicinity. Fill up, get some food in you, and please join us at 7:30 for a reading of Brian's play, The Real Change. Thank you.